Millionaire humiliates beggar who claims to be a car mechanic, but the beggar surprises everyone. "I'll give you $100,000 if you can fix this McLaren," said the millionaire to the beggar in a mocking tone. But what happened next shocked everyone in that dealership. Trevor Morrison laughed cruelly as he watched the dirty homeless man approach his luxury car dealership in downtown Miami. At 52 years old, Trevor owned the most prestigious automotive empire on the East Coast, where only millionaires could afford to shop. His showroom gleamed with Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and custom Bentleys that cost more than most people's houses. The homeless man shuffled through the pristine glass doors, his torn clothes and weathered face a stark contrast to the polished marble floors and crystal chandeliers. "Security!" Trevor barked into his gold-plated intercom, his voice dripping with disgust as he watched from his second-floor office. "Get that vagrant out of my establishment immediately before he scares away my real customers." But something stopped the security guards in their tracks when they heard what the homeless man said next. "I can fix the engine problem you've been struggling with for 3 months," said the stranger calmly, pointing toward the $1 million McLaren that sat broken in the corner of the showroom. Trevor's laughter echoed through the entire building as he descended the marble staircase, his $15,000 Italian suit pristine, and his diamond-encrusted watch catching the light. "You think you can fix what my team of certified engineers couldn't solve?" Trevor sneered, circling the homeless man like a predator. The stranger stood his ground despite his ragged appearance, his eyes focused intently on the disabled supercar. "That McLaren has a specific issue that requires knowledge most mechanics don't possess," the homeless man replied quietly. The absurdity of the situation drew a crowd of wealthy customers and Trevor's elite staff, all gathering to witness what promised to be the most entertaining humiliation of the year. Trevor's mechanics, Harrison, Blake, and Vincent, emerged from the service bay wearing their pristine uniforms and smirking at the spectacle before them. "This should be good," Harrison whispered to his colleagues as they formed a semicircle around the unlikely pair. The homeless man seemed oblivious to the gathering crowd, his attention completely absorbed by the broken McLaren. Trevor's eyes gleamed with malicious opportunity as an idea formed in his twisted mind, one that would provide entertainment for his customers and complete humiliation for this audacious vagrant. "I'll make you a deal, street rat," Trevor announced loudly, ensuring everyone in the showroom could hear his proposal. The homeless man turned slowly, his weathered face showing no fear despite being surrounded by mockery and wealth. "If you can actually fix that McLaren, I'll give you $100,000 cash," Trevor declared with theatrical grandeur, knowing full well the impossibility of such an outcome. "But when you fail miserably, which you absolutely will," Trevor continued with sadistic pleasure, "you'll sign a document promising to never set foot in any automotive establishment in this entire state again." The crowd erupted in laughter and excited whispers as they realized they were about to witness the most one-sided bet in Miami's history. Blake pulled out his phone to record what he was certain would become a viral video of ultimate humiliation. The homeless man listened to every word without flinching, his calloused hands hanging calmly at his sides despite the overwhelming pressure of dozens of eyes judging his every move. "What's your name, vagrant?" Trevor demanded with mock formality, pulling out an expensive leather contract folder from his briefcase. The homeless man hesitated for a moment, as if deciding whether to reveal something important about his identity. "Marcus," he replied simply, offering no last name or additional information to satisfy the curious crowd. Trevor scribbled the name onto his pre-printed humiliation contract, already savoring the moment when Marcus would be forced to sign his automotive death warrant in front of everyone. Vincent wheeled over a toolbox filled with basic equipment, the kind of simple tools that any amateur might use for household repairs rather than precision automotive work. "Here's everything you'll need to embarrass yourself properly," Vincent announced mockingly, dumping the contents onto the floor with deliberate disrespect. Marcus knelt down and examined each tool carefully, his experienced hands testing their weight and condition with the thoroughness of someone who understood quality equipment. "These will work fine," Marcus said quietly, surprising everyone with his confidence despite the obviously inadequate toolkit. The wealthy customers began placing bets among themselves, with odds heavily favoring Trevor's inevitable victory over the delusional homeless man. Harrison started a countdown timer on his tablet, giving Marcus exactly 2 hours to accomplish what their team of experts had failed to achieve in 3 months. 2 hours seems generous for someone who probably learned everything he knows from YouTube videos, Blake commented loud enough for Marcus to hear. The homeless man ignored the taunts completely, instead walking slowly around the McLaren and studying every visible detail with an intensity that made some observers uncomfortable. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trevor announced like a carnival barker, "witness the most expensive lesson in humility ever administered in the state of Florida." The crowd pressed closer, forming a tight circle around Marcus and the disabled supercar, their phones ready to capture every moment of his impending failure. Marcus placed his weathered hand on the McLaren's hood and closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening to something only he could hear. "This engine isn't broken," Marcus said suddenly, his voice cutting through the laughter and conversation like a blade through silk. "Block 03. The laughter died instantly as Marcus's unexpected declaration hung in the air like an accusation, forcing everyone to reconsider what they thought they understood about the situation. Trevor's confident smirk faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty that he quickly tried to mask with renewed arrogance and bluster. "Of course it's broken, you fool," Trevor snapped, his voice rising defensively. "My team has spent 3 months and $50,000 trying to repair that engine without success." Marcus opened the hood with surprising familiarity, revealing the complex heart of the million-dollar machine to the assembled crowd of skeptics. "Your team has been treating the symptoms instead of identifying the actual problem," Marcus explained calmly, his dirty fingers tracing specific components with surgical precision. Harrison stepped forward aggressively, his professional pride wounded by the implication that he and his colleagues had been incompetent for months. "We ran every diagnostic test known to modern automotive science," Harrison protested angrily. "Our equipment is worth more than most people's houses." Marcus nodded respectfully, but continued his examination without being intimidated by the heated responses surrounding him. "Expensive equipment can't replace understanding the fundamental engineering principles behind what you're diagnosing," Marcus replied softly, his words hitting the mechanics like physical slaps to their professional egos. Vincent's face turned red with rage as he realized this homeless vagrant was lecturing them about automotive knowledge they'd spent years studying. "Who do you think you are to question our expertise?" Vincent demanded furiously. Marcus paused his work and looked directly at the angry mechanic with eyes that held depths of experience none of them had expected. "I'm someone who understands that this McLaren was designed by engineers who prioritize performance over conventional repair methods," Marcus continued methodically, completely unfazed by the growing hostility around him. Blake grabbed his supervisor's arm and whispered urgently about stopping this charade before it went too far and made them all look foolish. The crowd of wealthy customers had grown silent, sensing something unexpected was developing in this supposedly simple entertainment. Trevor felt his stomach tighten as he watched Marcus work with a confidence that seemed completely at odds with his homeless appearance. "This engine uses a hybrid system that requires specific calibration sequences that most mechanics never encounter in traditional automotive training," Marcus announced to the stunned crowd. The technical terminology he used was precise and sophisticated, causing several onlookers to exchange confused glances about his unexpected expertise. "Furthermore, the diagnostic codes you've been reading are red herrings caused by a software conflict between the European engineering standards and American regulatory compliance systems," Marcus continued, his explanation becoming increasingly detailed and technically complex. Trevor realized with growing horror that Marcus was speaking with an authority that suggested real knowledge rather than desperate guessing. "That's impossible," Trevor shouted, his voice cracking slightly as his certainty began to crumble under the weight of Marcus's technical explanations. "You're just making up fancy words to sound intelligent." But even as he spoke, Trevor could see doubt creeping into the faces of his mechanics and customers. Marcus continued working methodically, his movements becoming more precise and purposeful as he accessed deeper levels of the McLaren's complex systems. "The hybrid integration protocol needs to be reset using a specific sequence that McLaren doesn't publish in their standard manuals," Marcus explained while accessing hidden diagnostic ports that the dealership's mechanics didn't even know existed. Harrison approached nervously, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity about Marcus's unexpected technical knowledge and systematic approach to the problem. "How do you know about unpublished McLaren protocols?" Harrison asked quietly, his voice free of mockery for the first time. Marcus paused his work momentarily, seeming to weigh how much information he was willing to reveal about his mysterious background. "I've worked with these systems before," Marcus replied vaguely, returning his attention to the engine without elaborating further. "Worked with them where?" Blake pressed insistently, now genuinely intrigued by the homeless man's obviously sophisticated understanding of exotic automotive technology. The crowd had grown completely silent, everyone straining to hear Marcus's response to what seemed like an increasingly important question. Various places. Marcus answered evasively, but his hands continued moving with the precision of someone who had intimate familiarity with million-dollar automotive systems. Trevor felt panic beginning to rise in his chest as he realized this wasn't going according to his carefully planned humiliation scenario. Vincent pulled out his tablet and began frantically researching McLaren technical specifications, trying to verify whether Marcus's explanations had any basis in reality. "He's right about the hybrid integration protocols," Vincent whispered to his colleagues in amazement. "Those diagnostic codes he mentioned are exactly what we've been seeing for 3 months. The mechanics exchanged increasingly worried glances as they realized their vagrant might actually know what he was talking about. Trevor's face had gone pale as he watched his certain victory transforming into something he hadn't anticipated. "Who are you, really?" Trevor demanded, his voice now carrying desperation instead of arrogance as he watched Marcus work with undeniable expertise. Marcus looked up from the engine bay, his weathered face showing a sad smile that spoke of painful memories and lost opportunities. "I'm someone who used to fix cars like this for people who could afford to own them," Marcus replied cryptically. The implication hung heavy in the air, suggesting a story far more complex than anyone had imagined when this strange encounter began. "Used to fix them where?" Trevor pressed urgently, his business instincts screaming that he was missing crucial information about this mysterious homeless man. Marcus straightened up slowly, wiping his hands on a shop rag as he seemed to make a decision about how much truth to reveal. "I was the chief automotive engineer for McLaren's North American racing division for 8 years, Marcus announced quietly, his words hitting the assembled crowd like a thunderbolt. The silence that followed was so complete that the only sound was the gentle hum of the dealership's air conditioning system. "That's impossible," Harrison exclaimed, but his voice lacked conviction as he stared at Marcus with new understanding dawning in his eyes. Blake frantically began searching his tablet for information about McLaren's engineering staff, his fingers flying across the screen in desperate verification attempts. "Marcus Chen," Blake whispered in amazement as he found what he was looking for. "Former chief engineer, 8-year tenure, responsible for 3 championship-winning designs." The confirmation hit the crowd like a physical force, reshaping everything they thought they understood about the situation. Trevor felt his legs weaken as the full magnitude of his error became clear, realizing he had publicly humiliated one of the most respected automotive engineers in the world. "You designed the systems in this car," Vincent said in awe, his earlier mockery completely forgotten in the face of Marcus's revealed expertise. Marcus nodded sadly, running his hand along the McLaren's frame like greeting an old friend he hadn't seen in years. "This particular model incorporates several innovations I developed during my time with the company," Marcus confirmed, his voice carrying both pride and melancholy. "But why are you—" Trevor started to ask, then stopped, unable to finish the question about how such an accomplished person had ended up homeless. Marcus's expression darkened as painful memories surfaced, his hands trembling slightly as he recalled events that had destroyed his carefully built life. The automotive industry can be unforgiving when economic downturns force companies to make difficult decisions about personnel, Marcus explained diplomatically. "Sometimes experience and loyalty aren't enough to protect you when budgets need cutting." "They fired you?" Blake asked incredulously, unable to comprehend how someone with Marcus's credentials could be discarded by the industry he'd helped revolutionize. Marcus's laugh was bitter and hollow, carrying years of disappointment and betrayal that had led him to his current desperate circumstances. "Corporate restructuring affects everyone eventually," Marcus replied with resignation, "even people who dedicated their entire careers to building someone else's success." The crowd began to understand they were witnessing something far more profound than a simple bet between unequal opponents. "But you could work anywhere," Harrison protested, genuinely confused about how someone with Marcus's background could remain unemployed for any significant period. Marcus shook his head sadly, his weathered features reflecting the harsh realities of ageism and corporate politics in modern America. "After a certain age, companies prefer hiring younger engineers with smaller salary expectations," Marcus explained wearily. "My reputation for excellence became a liability when employers assumed I'd be too expensive to maintain." Trevor listened in growing horror as he realized the systematic injustices that had reduced this brilliant man to desperate homelessness. The automotive industry moves quickly, and companies often prefer fresh graduates who will work for half the salary of experienced professionals. Marcus continued, his voice steady despite the obvious pain of recounting his professional downfall. Vincent looked stricken as he realized his own job security wasn't as guaranteed as he'd always assumed it would be. I spent 2 years applying to every automotive company in North America, but my experience worked against me instead of for me, Marcus added, highlighting the cruel irony of being too qualified for available positions. So you've been living on the streets? Blake asked softly, his earlier mockery completely replaced by genuine compassion for Marcus's impossible situation. Marcus nodded slowly, his dignity intact despite the obvious hardships he'd endured during his fall from professional grace. 3 months now, Marcus admitted. I sold everything I owned trying to survive while searching for work that would utilize my skills appropriately. The crowd absorbed this information in stunned silence, realizing they'd witnessed the humiliation of someone who'd contributed more to automotive innovation than any of them. Trevor felt physically sick as he contemplated the moral weight of what he'd done, understanding that his cruel entertainment had targeted someone whose professional accomplishments dwarfed his own. The McLaren should start now, Marcus announced, moving toward the driver's seat with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what he'd accomplished. The hybrid system is properly calibrated, and all diagnostic errors have been resolved through the correct protocol sequences. His technical explanation was precise and professional, delivered without any hint of gloating despite his obvious vindication. "Wait!" Trevor called out desperately, his voice cracking under the emotional weight of his realized mistake and the public humiliation he now faced. Marcus paused with his hand on the car door, turning back toward the man who'd treated him so cruelly just hours earlier. "I'll honor our agreement," Trevor continued, his voice barely above a whisper as he contemplated paying $100,000 to someone he'd initially dismissed as worthless. "But I want to offer you something else as well," Trevor added, his business mind racing as he recognized an unprecedented opportunity, despite his personal embarrassment. The McLaren's engine roared to life with a perfect purr that filled the showroom with the sound of precision engineering operating exactly as designed. Marcus sat behind the wheel for a moment, his eyes closed as he listened to the mechanical symphony he'd helped create years earlier. The crowd erupted in amazed applause, finally understanding they'd witnessed something truly extraordinary rather than the cruel entertainment they'd originally expected. Trevor approached the car slowly, his face showing a mixture of shame, respect, and desperate hope for redemption. "Marcus, I want to offer you the position of chief automotive engineer for my entire dealership network," Trevor announced loudly, ensuring everyone present could witness his attempt at making amends. "Full salary, benefits, and a partnership stake in the business." Marcus stepped out of the McLaren and studied Trevor's face carefully, searching for sincerity behind the obvious desperation and public embarrassment. "Why would you trust someone you were trying to humiliate just minutes ago?" Marcus asked pointedly, forcing Trevor to confront his own prejudices and assumptions. "Because I'm a businessman, and I recognize exceptional talent when I see it demonstrated," Trevor replied honestly, his voice carrying genuine respect for the first time. "Also because I realize I've been an arrogant fool who nearly lost the opportunity to work with one of the most brilliant automotive minds in the country." Marcus considered the offer carefully, weighing the sincerity of Trevor's words against the cruelty he'd experienced throughout their encounter. "I'll accept on one condition," Marcus said finally, surprising everyone with his willingness to forgive such public humiliation. "You establish a program to hire qualified mechanics regardless of their current circumstances or appearance," Marcus demanded, his condition carrying the weight of someone who'd experienced discrimination firsthand. "Talent exists in unexpected places, and people deserve opportunities based on their abilities rather than their social status." Trevor nodded eagerly, realizing that Marcus's wisdom extended far beyond automotive engineering into fundamental human decency and fairness. "Done," Trevor agreed immediately, extending his hand toward the man he'd tried to destroy just hours earlier. As they shook hands, the crowd burst into spontaneous applause, recognizing they'd witnessed something profound about redemption, second chances, and the danger of judging people by appearances. Marcus smiled genuinely for the first time that day, his weathered face showing hope that his expertise would finally be valued again. "The program starts tomorrow," Trevor announced to his staff. "And Marcus will be training all of you on advanced diagnostic techniques that clearly exceed our current capabilities. The mechanics nodded respectfully, their earlier arrogance replaced by eagerness to learn from someone whose knowledge could elevate their entire professional understanding. Final. 6 months later, Trevor's dealership had become the most successful automotive service center on the East Coast, with Marcus's innovative training programs revolutionizing their diagnostic capabilities and customer satisfaction. The homeless hiring initiative had discovered several exceptionally talented mechanics who'd been overlooked by traditional employment practices, proving Marcus's point about talent existing in unexpected places. Trevor kept a framed photo on his desk showing Marcus working on that first McLaren, serving as a daily reminder about the dangers of prejudice and the importance of recognizing human potential regardless of appearances. This incredible true story proves that we should never judge someone's worth based on their current circumstances, because talent and expertise can be found in the most unexpected places. Marcus's journey from homelessness back to professional success reminds us that everyone deserves dignity and opportunity, regardless of how they might appear on the surface. Sometimes the people we're quickest to dismiss are exactly the ones who can teach us the most valuable lessons about life, business, and basic human decency. What do you think about Trevor's transformation from arrogant millionaire to humble businessman? Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed your perspective about judging others? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories about second chances, redemption, and the power of recognizing hidden talent. Hit that notification bell so you never miss these amazing real-life stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction.